All right. Good morning, Jay. Good morning to everybody. Afternoon here on the East Coast, but just barely afternoon on the East Coast. Happy Monday to you all, of course. And as per usual, it's an open forum here for this platform. No pre-done content. So I rely on you folks to drive the content with your questions that you need answered on the software. If you're just kind of kicking the tires here, trying to see what we're all about, asking those questions so you can get a better idea of who and what Trade Ideas is. So don't be shy, ask those questions and we'll get right to them. Like I said, I don't have any pre-done content. I rely on you folks to drive the content with your questions. Good morning, James. Good morning, Jerry. So again, folks, as I see a few more people start to pile on in here, I again stress, don't be shy, ask those questions. Is there a way to incorporate? No, I don't know what that means, but no. There's no way to bring in data that doesn't exist within the system already, Jerry. So if you don't see it, bring over an alert window. Configure. If you search for it in the search terms here and you don't see it, unfortunately, we don't have it. So after you make any changes in a scan, once you're done here, right? So let's just say I just made the scan here. Bring it back over the screen. You can first right click, save or share to cloud, and save it that way. And then it will forever live in the cloud until you delete it. And if you go to file, load from cloud, it'll be up here. You can also, once you've made a change to your layout, if you decide that you want your layout when you start Trade Ideas to look like that with that added scan, you go file, save layout. You're going to select default layout, all capitals _ .lti. And then you'll press save. And then moving forward, every time you load Trade Ideas, that will be part of your startup layout. You can create other layouts too, but you're always going to have a default layout. What happens when you start Trade Ideas? But some people have a pre-market layout, a post-market layout. I've seen people break their layout into, this is from 9 a.m. Eastern until 12 p.m. Eastern, and then from 12 to 2 and 2 to 4. I've seen people break up layouts all kinds of ways, different scans for different time periods in the market and things like that. Money Machine Market Pulse. All right. I think that's a Dan thing that he was doing last week. I don't honestly know anything about it. So if you can send an email to info@trade-ideas.com and I'll ping him and do some researching on it. But it's not something I have or have access to. I believe someone told me he mentioned this thing. I don't know what it is at all. So I'm sorry I can't help you on that exactly. If you can email there, I'll get some info for you on it. The pattern recognition, not currently, Jay. No, just what you see, what we have already. Alert windows. In the search here, whether you're talking about geometric patterns, this is what we have to offer here. There's no updates forthcoming on this at this time. And then candlestick patterns, we have all these. There's quite a few here. Again, no updates forthcoming on any of those. No support phone number. We do our support here every market day, noon to 1. We have the live traders room, generally about 9 a.m. Eastern when Barry gets on the mic till about 2:30 p.m. Eastern. We have our live support chat and the email, but we don't do a phone support. Phones are for billing only. And you are welcome, Jerry. So, all right, we're firing the questions in right away. I'm loving it. Keep it coming, please. Don't be shy. we able? There's no list of most popular screeners. We have over 500 data points, right? For generally speaking, this is the way things work. For those that stick around the software long enough, is they start to create their own scans out of the 500 plus real-time data points that we have. And those scans are private and unto those users. So we don't have access to them, and we can't, even if we did, we're not going and sharing private things from our users at all. When it comes to the channels, we've got a lot of pre-made stuff that's in there. But I think once people really start to get a hold of understanding what trading really is, they move away from the channels for the most part. And, we can see what channels are accessed the most, but we can't see what scans are utilized the most. There's no way to know which scans are being specifically used the most. So, I could tell you that the pre-market channel, momentum channel, explosive winners channel, short squeeze channel, those are like the absolute most popular channels that are used as far as that goes there, Jerry. Anybody can create a scanner and call it anything they want. When you create a scanner and you come to the summary, I can call this anything I want. High of day momentum, low of day breakdown, trending up, trending up on whatever SMAs. But I don't have to make the scan actually be any of those things that I name it. You could, the same as you could title a book all about birds and the entire book is about volcanoes, right? The same kind of concept here. So like a lot of times people say, oh, do you have a high a day momentum scanner? There is no one high a day momentum scanner. There's a lot of combinations that could be made with it. We could always assist in some kind of template and guide along into thoughts that we would have behind how that would be created. And then of course, folks can take it from there and create it or further edit it how they want to see it done. Are we able to pair high relative volume with bearish or bullish candlesticks to equal one alert where both conditions are met? So alert windows work like this. You'll select, hold on, let me get back to the search. You'll select an alert. There we go. You select an alert. The alerts are these single icons like this. And usually you want just one alert for a scan, but if you had, for example, you could do like new high and new low as two alerts in the scan. If you were just looking for stocks making either new highs or new lows on, let's say, just high volume, for example, that would work like that. But obviously you wouldn't use some kind of scan with looking for stocks trending up above VWAP and an SMA and a high RSI, and then use new low of the day, for example, right? That wouldn't make any sense. So generally speaking, you're going to want just one alert in here for the most part, and then you pair it with filters, whatever filters you want, and the alert has to be met at the same time as the filters to get the alert. So you could do something like one of these candlestick patterns that exist. Scroll back up, any of these kind of candlestick patterns, and then put the relative volume filter in there. Give it whatever you determine to be high value. It's done on a ratio of the relative volume. So 1 is normal, 2 is 2 times, 3 is 3 times, 4 is 4 times, so on and so forth. And that's how that would work in that regard. But there's no or conditions with the scan. It's not relative volume or RSI. It's if you put relative volume and RSI with the alert in there, it's and for each one of those. Each one of those has to be met to get the alert. Let me know if that makes sense, Jay. Hopefully I answered that correctly for you, or I answered what you were really asking. Michelle, is Barry still around? Yeah, he doesn't do YouTube anymore. He just has the room like he's always had, but he stopped streaming on YouTube quite some time ago. So he takes his break at noon like he always has. We do this YouTube side of things from noon to 1 when he's on a break. And then you could always shift back over to him at 1 o'clock Eastern when he's off his break. Let me get you a link for the room. Bear with me while I search for my links. There we go. That is a link to the Traders Room with Barry there. All right, so keep those questions coming, please. AFE. Are you asking a symbol, Ken? Or do you want to look at a symbol? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. So, I mean, we would do something like this. I've got this configure open here. First, we'd select what bullish candle are we looking at, right? I don't know. Let's just say, let's go with the 5-minute piercing pattern, right? And we could add that alert. We put a check in there. I'm going to get rid of those other ones that are there. And then I come back to the search, relative volume. And I could add that filter. I don't know, I could put a 5 in there for that, right? Maybe I want to set, minimum volume on the day. It's trade at least 500,000 shares on the day, something like that. Okay, so if you go and you start choosing every one of those, you're going to run into an issue. Think about data coming back and forth to your computer from the servers like a fire hose, right? And then imagine trying to shove a watermelon through a giant watermelon through a fire hose, right? So there's limitations on how many things you can select in an alert window. There are limitations on how many alert and topless windows you can have. There's no formula on it because everybody's ISP is going to be a little different. Everybody's computing power is going to be a little different. And then B, if you've got simpler scans that just let in a million things at once, that's going to take up a lot of bandwidth. If you have things that have a ton of stuff in there, while it doesn't take a lot of bandwidth, it's all of a sudden working hard to search for those things like that as well. So if you go ahead and you check, let's say, 20 different alerts and put them all in a window, I'm 100% confident will cause you an issue. So as I always tell people, there's no exact calculation on the limitations with this because there are so many variables, but if you push the system and test it, you will find them. So it becomes one of those things where start to create some stuff, see how things react, add along to it. And when you start to run into those performance issues, and you'll know you're having performance issues because the software will slow down, things will get sluggish. You'll click on something, it won't react right away. Other factors that also, what broker you're using, how many brokers you might have open, other software you have going on, are you streaming music, how many browser tabs, these all play a role in the whole thing. And then this number here, if you start to really hammer on the software, you'll start to see that thing shoot up into the thousands. As long as it's generally below 300, you're good to go. I mean, once in a while, everybody sees it shoot up to like 300, 400, 500, 600. It just happens where you get like one ping like that. But if you're just pinging over 350, 400, you're going to start to see some slowdowns on things. Yeah, then you should be all right. If you're just, the limitations would be further along, or you could go further along in it with limitations before limitations hit. You're just running those items. I will say, depending on YouTube and what you're doing in YouTube, that will play some role. But if you just got one YouTube tab open, you shouldn't run it. That shouldn't be causing you any major issues or anything like that. But I come across users that have 10 alert windows. Each alert window has 10 alerts that are checked in it, and they've got 6 top lists, and every one of those top lists are set to 1,000 record count with 20 columns. They're gonna fry, they're gonna fry it. That's all. That's how it'll work. Is there any information on what signal Holly prioritizes? No, Holly is just a at its core, Holly is an extremely fancy alert window, essentially, that gets back tested and optimized every night after the market closes. Has 50 some odd base strategies, 60 some odd base strategies, something like that. The ones that back test and optimize the best each night get deployed the next day. And if a stock meets any of those scans, they get alerted in real time. But Holly's not looking at any specific stock. Holly's looking at every single stock. There are 4 Holly strategies that always get turned on no matter what every day. The breakout long, breakdown short. What's the other one? Bear with me. Breakdown long, breakout short. Oh, come on, Chris. My memory fails me. Bear with me here. Breakdown short, breakout long, pullback long, pullback short. Those four get activated every single day. And then from there, it's just the other ones get activated based on optimization and backtesting. If you have questions specifically on Holly and you want to do, you ask them here, of course, and then on, when we're not here in these live sessions, here's a video for you to review on Holly. It goes pretty in depth, covers, I think, all the features that are in there that need to be covered, or all the ins and outs with it. I think it should answer most, if not all, questions, but always, ask the questions. Never hesitate. Never hesitate. And then let's see. Can you suggest how to configure a scan with a week of consolidation pattern, then started to have strong relative volume with increasing price action? So, we can find consolidation, but what's tough is to say something consolidated and now it's broken out, right? It's either breaking out or it's consolidating. Finding both those at the same time becomes tricky. We can certainly get higher volume in there. So some thoughts that come to mind right away. Let me, where am I? Oh, there's my menu bar. Sorry. My menu bar usually lives on another screen. I was looking for it there. So let's go with, let's do an alert window for this. This is just me kind of spitballing some ideas here. But if we're looking for consolidation for like a week, I'd go range. Filters, let's see. So I'm going to go 5-day range. Let's go with the percent. Let's add that filter. And, I don't know what you're going to consider a tight range or not, but we can go with, I'd say 2% on the range for 5 days. And then from here, we want to say maybe it's up from the close, this prior close. So we put a minimum here, right? Throw a relative volume of 5 to say it's higher volume. Maybe we want to say it's 1 million in shares. So put a 1M there for 1 million instead of typing the whole thing out. Want to up from the open as well, maybe. So we'll put a 0 there. And then we can add a new high alert. So at least we're making a new highs on the day. Press OK there, and that'll give us a summary here. So that's the kind of direction I would be thinking as far as what you're asking there, Ken. Something in the ballpark of that. There are other things we could look at too. There's position and range. So we've got this position and 5-day range. So we could also say, instead of using that range filter with putting a max on there, right, we could say it's in between, I don't know, let's say like 35 and 65%, so it's not on the bottom, it's not on the top of the 5-day range. It's kind of consolidated, over the last few days. In that regard, that's another way to look at consolidation. There are a few longer time frames too. We could look at 10 and 20 days as far as the position range goes. With range, similar stuff. Let me just double check to make sure. 500 things here, so I don't have them all memorized. And you could, on the range, you could choose dollar or percent if you prefer working in one or the other. But yeah, 5, 10, 20-day ranges on that. So you can consider all of those. Forget the consolidation alert has a filter attached to it. So there's the consolidation alert. Okay, yeah, it's a quality alert, not days. There is a consolidation filter in days, so you can use that. It uses an algo to determine consolidation. There's a position in the consolidation too, whether it's up or down in the consolidation. So these are all items that I would point you towards, Ken, in that scan creation. Let me know if that helps. Let me know if that you have questions. Hopefully I covered your question correctly. Makes sense. That's great. All right. Glad, Jay, that helped. Glad that helped, Jerry. Is Ion IONQ a swing trade? I have no idea. I'm not a financial advisor. Sorry. We look at a chart and we can, talk about the chart, but I can't tell someone it's anything. I can just tell you it's a stock in the market and it's traded. Well, I could tell you if it ever loaded on my chart. I can't tell you if it doesn't load. Sorry. Holy cow. Let's see if that helps. I mean, look, it's swinging itself up here after a pretty solid sell-off. It's an interesting level that it's at right now. We can see how much price gravitated towards that level. It's got an overall positive reaction to earnings so far. So I could see how someone might consider it as a swing trade, right? But I can't say, yeah, that's a swing trade. It's Steve's trade of the week. Gotcha. I defer to whatever he said. Again, it's content. It's what's the word I'm looking for? No, it's not trading advice. I know, David, but Steve's not putting it out there as necessarily trading advice, but idea generation. That's what I was looking for. So I can see why that's an interest for it. It hasn't just mooned and taken off. It's kind of grinding its way higher. Earnings are now behind it. Let's see. All right, keep them coming. Keep them coming. Don't be shy. Get some more questions in here for me, please. Again, don't be shy, folks. Keep those questions coming. We started off fast and furious with those questions. Let's keep it going. Or not. So be it. No issue using brokers plus Windows send to IBRK and orders not going through. No, there's no issues with that. Yes, you can create automated strategies with alert windows It has to follow market mechanics. So, you'd create an alert window. Generally, the path is create the alert window, backtest, optimize it, and then you'd load it into Brokerage Plus, and you'd give it, some trading instructions. Here's Brokerage Plus. So you right click, load from cloud. After you saved it to the cloud, you'd load it in from there. And then you come in and you go to edit trading strategy. Now it should carry over whatever you did in the back test. One thing about the back test, you have to have a hold time. In this, you can get rid of that hold time if you want. You'd make sure everything looks right in there, select the account, all that stuff like that. And then you could send it off. Always, please, I cannot stress this enough, because every week I come across people that do this. I'll be honest, it blows my mind that anybody would try something new with real money for the first time. I can't possibly understand what logic or reason behind someone would do that, but every single week someone does it. Please test everything in paper first. Please test everything in paper and first. And then when you go live, don't go with your full amount that you want to go live with. Please start with smaller amounts. So if anything does go wrong live, you're not blowing up your account on an error. I'm also saying this from my own personal experience, having done it. But that's generally that. And yeah, Dylan, as far as, orders going through, if it's not going through, there's going to be a reason for it. We've got millions of orders going back and forth. I'm lying. Millions of orders a year. We have tens of thousands of orders a week going through for IBKR. And I don't have anybody's, and I'm the one that does all the troubleshooting for Brokerage Plus. I have nobody that's had an issue today, or nobody with an issue today. And generally when someone has an issue, I always get to the root of what it was. It's almost always someone either didn't select the account in here for it, or, the order timed out before it got filled on a limit, things like that. What do I recommend for watching sector intraday action? And Dylan, if you have something that happens, by the way, too, like, I'm not just like, oh, there's no errors. There's definitely been errors in the past. I can, definitely had a few here and there. There's none that I currently know of. And if you have something that, like, yeah, I think this should have gone through, but I'm not sure, that in that case, it's always best to email me, info@trade-ideas.com. All right, shoot me an email there. And generally things that I'll ask for is, what was the stock? What day and time do you think it should have went through? Send me your support files. Your support files are done by going to help, send files to support. And then I always like to ask for screenshots of like orders. If you can send me your orders and your executions tab screenshots as well. Sometimes, depending on the situation, I may ask you for your trading instructions. If you got a hold time, I want to see that. Risk management, I'd like to see that. Order details, I'd like to see that. Generally speaking, each situation will vary. For example, someone will say, oh, these orders weren't going through for me, so I may ask you to send me the entry time and the order detail, but I don't need the risk management in that case, right? Because we're not concerned about the stop loss or target if the opening order wasn't going through or filled. We would just look at these here. So those are the kinds of things that I would generally ask for in that. And yeah, look, I don't know if I've made every mistake you can make out there, but I can tell you for sure I've made a lot of them. And I do mean a lot. And I didn't listen to a lot of things when I first started trading out that I should have listened to. I listened to some of them, not all of them. But one of the things that I did not listen to that I really should have was I should have not gone to live trading. I'd say at least for 8 months. At least for 8 months after I became a Trade Idea subscriber. And I know a lot of people will sit there and say, yeah, well, you're going to pay for the software for 8 months and not trade live. And I would say to you, well, do you go to college to become an engineer for 4 years? And do you start working as an engineer in your first 8 months in college? The answer is no, right? So this is a profession like any other profession. And there's just no way anybody on this planet has ever stepped into trading and made money in their first 6 months unless they went to school for it for all these years and they had some mentorship and tutoring, and then all of a sudden they went live, right? And then even in that case, there was still all kinds of practice and knowledge and studying and things that went before the live trading. So I'd say that would be the biggest thing. And back when I first became a Trade Ideas subscriber, there was no Trade Ideas paper trader. It didn't exist. Brokerage Plus was only connecting to IBKR Live. That was it. But a way I could have done my paper trading back then, hindsight being 2020, is I could have used the price alerts window and maybe use that in a way, I think, for paper trading. Could have just done it in a journal too, I suppose. But as I said, hindsight's 2020. So there's a mistake to be made. The odds are I made it. And, sometimes, everybody's going to pay it. Steve used to always say, he used to do some podcasts with Dan and them. And then in the live webinars that these guys used to do long before I came to work for Trade Ideas, Steve would always say everybody pays a tuition to the market, but, you have some control over how much of a tuition you pay, right? And that control is by paper trading at first. Because if you can't make money on paper, there's a 0% chance you're making money, real money, right? But as Steve would say, everybody pays a tuition to the market. That's just how it goes. We have BAOS going crazy right now. Oh, yeah, there it is, running across my races. What's going on? Come on, chart. Come on, software, you can load. Oof. So, yeah, flat doing nothing all day and then out of nowhere. What a move, too. Look at that. That is serious. No, there are no plans to interface with DAS at this time. DAS, whatever anybody's calling it these days. TradeStation will be next that gets put into this here. We will be able to link to TradeStation. I will not give you any date. And if anybody here gives you a date, don't listen to them, please. It is what it is. We understand people when they hear a new thing is coming. When am I going to have it? When am I going to have access to it? I like to tell people you will have access to it when it's released. That's when you'll have access to it. There's never a date for any of these things. And if you could ask anybody from our development team if there was ever a date, they would never give you a date. Never, ever, ever, ever give you a date. But we get excited about things here, and sometimes people like to give dates or tentative dates. But I think it's wise to not sell anything we don't have. But TradeStation will be next in line here, and then we'll see what happens from there. I know that once the development and management team get the money machine across the finish line, attention will be turned to some of these things. But for now, that is taking up all the attention of the development and management team. Can you set those race stock window patterns to be traded automatically? Ken, that's what the money machine will allow for when that's ready. It's going to have some complexities to it. It will not be just hey, here's my race and trade it. You got to decide how it's entering, how it's managed, how it's exiting. It'll have a lot of dynamic ways to do it that you can't do with normal brokers and things of that nature. It will be a very dynamic system, but you will have to have some trading knowledge. You will have to have Trade Ideas software knowledge. It's not, I know everybody wants something, I just plug it in and I make money. That will never exist. I don't care what anybody tells you. There will never be a system which the average person could just simply pay X amount of money and it makes them money. That's called a pyramid scheme. There'll never be a system where you just turn it on and it makes you money in the stock market without you having some unbelievable knowledge in the market, coding, and whatever else. No plans for TOS because we tried it back in the day and their API does not work well. It's delayed, it's faulty, it's broken. And when we brought that this was back when they were TD Ameritrade before Charles Schwab had them. TD Ameritrade, we said, hey, your API is broken. They said, hey, okay, That was the end of the conversation. They had zero intention of fixing it or doing anything with it. So I would have to surmise Charles Schwab cares even less than TD Ameritrade did. And until they decide that they want to make a working API that truly works, there will be no TOS, unfortunately. So, sorry, Ken, to finish out, I got distracted when I saw the thing coming about TOS. So when the money machine is ready, it will allow for that. It will be, for my current understanding, and things could change. They're not up to me. These are management decisions. As it stands right now, when the money machine is ready, it will be released in batches to people that are on a current wait list that is closed. There will be another wait list that opens at some point. I do not know when that point is. It will be a first come, first served basis, that wait list. I have some conflicting points where that wait list will either be first option to premium users or not. At the moment, it looks like that second wait list will be first option to premium users, then released to the general public if there's more slots. Again, this will be rolled out in phases. We will not allow just 1,000 people to subscribe. The money machine will be a $5,000 a year add-on to premium, and we will not just open it up to like 1,000 people at once. We will scale it out. How it gets scaled out exactly, I can't tell you. And just on a further comment on Thinkorswim, I do wish that we linked to it directly. When we tried to link to it, I did the testing. I like Thinkorswim. It's my preferred method of trading. When I was still day trading, I used Thinkorswim for my day trading. I preferred that and executing there. I don't really day trade at all anymore. I can't do it with the support volume that I have to handle here now. I'm not a very good day trader, but I like it. In full disclosure, it's not something I excel at, but I'm better than I used to be. I was once upon a time very terrible at it. Now I'm not so awful at it, or at least I was, but I just can't give it the attention that it deserves. Day trading is super hard. Day trading is much harder to me than swing trading. That's just for me anyways. So I think I've answered everybody's questions to this point. If I've somehow missed your question, please put it back in. Or if I didn't answer your question satisfactory, or to your satisfaction, excuse me, please also get it back in and say, hey, you touched on this, but if you could go a little further on it for me, or I want to add this to that question that I asked, so on and so forth. I want to make sure that everybody's getting the attention that they deserve as far as the support goes on this software. Thank you. What else? This is a great session today. Thank you, everybody, for the interactions. I appreciate it. It's much nicer for me personally, when you folks are asking the questions like this. As I said many times, and I'll say anytime it happens, like I can talk about charts and markets and whatever else. I don't have any special insight. I like to look at charts. I like to draw some lines on it. I don't use almost any technical indicators. I don't care for them. When I say I don't care for them, I don't care for them in my trading. I like support, resistance, volume, and price. And that's all I really need. I understand a lot of technical indicators. I've studied them. I've gone through a lot of the CMT material. I passed the level 1 test. When some personal things in my life slow down over the next 12 months, I'll go back and finish up my CMT courses, and I will, hopefully pass all those tests, and the board will approve me to become a chartered market technician. I have a great passion for it. I have a great passion for technical analysis, discussing it with folks. I would never say teaching because I'm always learning, but I love to discuss all those things. But I found in my own personal trading for the time being, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? That's just for me. personally. But I have ambitions as I free up more personal time in my life and I can give more attention. I would like to come up with creating trading systems myself. I just don't currently have that luxury right now with some things that are going on. That's why you see here, my charts are simple. I got the picture in picture, right? On this, I have a multi-period low with that period being 20 days. I got a VWAP here, and I put the trade wave on here, because I like to showcase it for users and potential users to see the trade wave and discuss it. But I like to keep things very simple. Once upon a time, at the beginning of my journey, closer to the beginning anyways, I'd had on all my charts, I had a 10 SMA, a 20 SMA, a 50 SMA, a 100 SMA, and a 200 SMA. And it was great. And eventually I understood what it all meant and was doing. I put an RSI on a chart, on all my charts and all those things like that. But I couldn't tell you how to use them, really. I mean, I could say, yeah, these indicate a trend, right? That was all I could tell you about them, right? I didn't formulate trading plans around them or anything like that. And I just found that support and resistance and volume with the price action kind of worked well for me, or well enough that I went from losing money to not losing money to making a little bit of money on my trading. Yeah, Jerry. So I like to draw lines on charts. So let's let's just go with a simple chart, or one everybody can, or let's not do anything. Sorry, when I stream, my machine just doesn't handle well when I stream, and Trade Ideas just gets really wonky on me. But I got a paper position, or no, sorry, I've got an order to open a paper position here. Apparently, I didn't realize on Apple. But what I like to do is, first off, I like to look, is a stock in a downtrend or an uptrend? If it's in a downtrend, I don't really have an interest in it. So in the case of Apple, as far as I'm concerned, it's in a downtrend still. Is it trying to buck that downtrend? It is, but it needs to get above this. That's what I'm looking at right now. But let's just pretend for 1 second it does. Well, then I like to draw some lines on some charts, right? And I like to look at the volume, and do we have declining volume, rising volume? But this is a big area of interest to me, just looking at it, ballparking it from my view on my desk here. These lines really frustrate me. Okay, I got to turn this off. Sorry, I can't use the browser interface with this here. I'm going to use the old drawing tools here. And let's hit the Wayback Machine again. And just looking at this area here, draw a line to here. And what do I see? I see price just loving to interact with this area, and it's a magnet. So we got ourselves a downtrend for now, right? If we can get above this kind of cross here of this downtrend, and we start to move, and I'm looking at this gap fill here, then this area looks, like it's got a little price action magnet to it, love, whatever you want to call it. And we start to look at this area up here, and that's what I start to look at on the upside. Where's my reward, right? Also, where's my risk to the downside? My risk to the downside right now is all the way down here, actually, where I randomly stuck that order there last week. I was testing something. And that's my risk to the downside, right? And so I'm looking at these risk rewards, and I cannot accept when a risk reward is not higher reward to risk. I never have a hard target. I have tentative targets that I'd like to see. I have hard stops though. And so for right now, somewhere around this area, 200, just below 200, I'd be looking at that as a stop. And I'd be looking at this area as the first tentative target, 226. So, kind of based on this right here, risking $9 to make $16, I could accept that. I could accept that risk. Should we get above this line, I'd like to see it, above this line for a day or two and not move too far off it and cut out my risk, right? Or not cut out too much of my reward while hanging me more risk actually. And if a stock takes off without me, it takes off without me. There'll be another one. That's just how it goes. I like to see horseshoe up-like patterns involved in things like this as well. Unfortunately, we're not going to see a lot of those given, some of this drop and chop that happened here. So, those are the kinds of things that I'm looking at and all that. Sorry, I lost a train of thought. Oh, I know what it is. Sorry. I see some other questions that come in. Bear with me as I'll rotate to them, but I want to see if I can find some other kinds of setups that I like here. Not stocks too new. This thing has become a runaway train now at this point. But, looking at something like this, I had this nice move here. I would have loved if it didn't just collapse, absolutely collapse right there. But I'd be looking at this here. Look at this level again, right? And if this gets up in this level and we saw some consolidation there, well, then, we start to look at some good risk rewards here because we've got a nice move that could happen all the way back up to that area right there. And we can start to look at this area here on that gap up and saying below that gap, we're bearish, and above this line, we're bullish. So this starts to leave me a stop here and an entry here and a potential target there. That's a huge reward to risk ratio that I like. So this is the kind of things that I'm looking at and looking for. I'm going to find some other stuff here. Again, that's kind of ran away too much and it's a little choppy for me. I don't really care for that chart. No, that's ugly as sin. Well, this would have been nice, right? We got this nice move, right? And look at that consolidation and then bang, off and away. So hindsight's 2020. Had I seen that back here, though, I'd have very much liked that possible setup going on. You got a beautiful reward. Look, we go way back, right? I'm not seeing any risk. Obviously, I looked at the stock in the past. So I know from the past that line that I drew there, right? That was a very nice looking setup. No, that's terrible looking. Yeah. I can find better stuff than that, I think. Yeah. See if I can find one or two more examples that look good to me. I'm picky. I'm very picky. And a lot of these are going to be tough because they're going to have these bottoms and almost V recoveries now. And I'm going to need some consolidation from that V recovery. I'm not just going to run right out to it. Yeah, too much on some of these. I want this to be interesting, but I have some bias on this. I've actually traded the stock a lot and did really well with this stock, like really well. So I have some bias to it because of this here. But, we get clearly a positive reaction to earnings at this point. We can get above this line here that we see has been an absolute, bear for it. Got up above it and went crazy. Now it's back below it again and running into it. We start to look at, this gap here as a possible risk zone. We get above this line, we start to look at these levels here as potential targets. Below this line, we're bearish. I'm not liking it anymore. So it offers some okay risk reward here. I just like to be as open and honest as I can that, like I said, I did well with this stock and, on its collapse, kept thinking about getting back in every time it collapsed, made a move down and then bounced. And I'm glad I never did because every one of these, look at this. Lower highs the whole way, lower lows the whole way, and it has not bucked that trend yet, right? We've got this low. We ain't taking a new high yet, right? So if we have this come in as the new low, right? That's a higher low. And if we can get to here, then we've got a higher high, right? And we can start to look at a trend moving up. And that's what it's all about, finding trends, identifying trends, and then, trying to find good risk reward entries on those trends. So I know a bunch of more came in here. Let me see. As a swing trader, we talked about that, more specifically not being late to the party. It's subjective what's late, right? Because you're going to have people that, say, all right, I'm in here and now they're doing well right now. And you're going to have other people, and you're going to have some people selling it here saying I'm done, and other people that are buying it here saying this is where I want in. Well, are these people late? Does it keep going? There's no way to know if you're late until it's too late, right? And so you have to decide risk reward entry, right? Does this entry provide me a healthy reward to risk? That's what's more important than being late, because being late means, am I right or wrong? We're not trying to be right or wrong. We're managing risk. In theory, not in theory, most successful traders are wrong more than they're right. But once they're right, they stay right longer than they stay wrong. And they have higher rewards to their risk scenarios. And that's what makes a successful trader on every time frame. Would I use races for intraday sector action? No, I'd never use a race for the intraday sector. I just use this sector analysis list over here. You can create one yourself. Just make a blank top list and then come into the symbol list here, this tab, look for add existing list and look for sector analysis user's guide. I created that list and it has all these ETFs on it here, and you have access to that list. And it's your basic food group on lists on ETF sectors. So that's what I would do there. I wouldn't use the race for it personally. That's just my 2 cents, but that doesn't make me right. I'm new to trade. I would like to know, is there a tutorial on how to use the AI Holly to help you mitigate your risk and pick stocks 3 to 5% swings? Not specifically something like that. Here's a video on Holly that I did recently. It is up to date. It is current for Holly. It should answer a lot, if not all, questions on it. But essentially what Holly does is Holly makes alerts once the market opens. It looks at the entire market, and when a stock meets its scanning criteria on its different strategies, it'll make that alert real time and then a suggested stop with it. And from there, you got to be a trader and decide, do I like that stop price? B, do I like the entry price? And C, how do I manage all that from there? And that's what Holly does, So, these alerts came in at these times. A lot of them come pretty early in the day. Some provide, let's call them second chance entries. So let's take a look here. You got this AGEN, right? So you got the original alert here, and it ran up quick, fell down, and now it's trying to get back above that price alert level, alert level again. So we could ask ourselves a second chance to try to trade that type of thing. Take a look at INHD. Should it ever grace its presence on the chart? So look, it called a short here, ran sideways, and it really ran up, and it would have crushed you if you weren't managing things right. It's come down and it's below and it's back in the money here, right? So second chance entry on that as well. So that's what those are the kinds of things I'd point you towards, Barry, when you're looking at this. It's still idea generation. There's a little more statistical analysis that goes on behind it with some other suggestions with the stop price. But at the end of the day, you still got to be a trader. I am going to begin to walk myself out of here momentarily, folks. I wrap up at the top of the hour here, 1 o'clock Eastern. So if there's any other questions, if I missed something, did I miss anything today? Let me scroll back up. Back to the start of the session here. We talked about that. We talked about that. We talked about that. Relative volume. We talked about that. Barry's room. Best way capture. We got that. We got that. All right, I don't think I missed anything. Again, I just tried to read back over everything real quick here. Jay, if a stock fails your setup but comes back and makes the move you were waiting on originally, isn't it better to stay out because of the loss or take the shot at the second attempt? I'd take the shot at the second attempt. If it was still what I call an A+ setup, I'd take the second attempt. It happens. Now, what I don't like to do is this. If I trade a stock and I do well in it and I exit it and then it keeps going without me, it just can keep going without me. I don't like to chase it once I'm out of it. If it resets up again, I'd revisit it, of course. But let's just say, for example, this will be a good example here. AAOI. So I had traded it. In here, and I got part of this move in here. I sold a good portion of it as this pullback started to happen. And then when we got here, I re-added to it, and I got a little bit of that right there. And then I missed that big move. It consolidated. I got this move here. I did not get that move here. So I never chased. I kept in and out and in and out and in and out. And I was taking small positions as it got more volatile. And then, all right, let me get rid of all this. As it started to fall here, I got out. So it's not like I bought here and I sold there. I bought in here actually, and I sold in here. So from here to here, I got this part of that move, right? I did get this move. I did get that. That was nice, right? But that was it, And I when it bounced back here, I said 40 is a tough level, right? And we bounced on declining volume, right? So here's where the selling volume came in. We were declining as we moved back up, and I said 40 is tough. The volume's declining. I don't want to be a buyer back into that like that. I want to see the buyers stepping in with conviction, and they weren't. So those are the kinds of things that I'm looking at. And as per always, whenever a trade goes well for me, I never have a big enough position, and whenever a trade goes poorly for me, my position's always too big. It's just kind of an old trading adage, essentially. When it's right, it's never enough. And when it's wrong, it's always too much. It's just the way it goes in life. Yeah, you're absolutely welcome, Jay, of course. So, all right, folks, I'm going to wrap up here for the day. I thank you all. This was one of the better sessions we had in a long time. I really appreciate you all coming in here, engaging the entire hour, too. Yeah, folks never left me hanging this hour. That was really big. I appreciate that. I don't know how the rest of the week shakes out. I was here Monday, Tuesday last week. It could work out that way again this week. I can't say for sure. Steve and Andy, of course, will make their appearances at some point. Dan will be here on Wednesday. So I always encourage folks, you've got especially money machine questions and what's happening behind the scenes. Dan's the best one to answer that stuff. He's got his hand on the pulse of all things in the lab. Always best to let him direct those kinds of items like that. And he thinks we thinks it's, as a team, it's good that he puts himself out there for the subscribers. I don't think there's a lot of software where you've got the CEO making themselves available like that every single week live, where you can really get to them in that regard. So I just highly encourage folks to take advantage of that with Dan on Wednesdays at noon. So again, I thank you all for hanging with me, spending the hour, and we will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.